All right, we are live. Welcome, Andy, to the show today. It's good to have you back. It's been a couple weeks,
Good to
and
be
we've
back
had
with you too, brother.
we've had quite a bit of news happen. So I think we've got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, gold and silver taking off for sure. One of the things that we've talked a lot about for a long time, I've been talking about really, there's the old saying that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Um,
Yes.
and the silver to gold ratio is one of these deals where it's just become obvious that silver is massively undervalued in its relation to gold, and we can get into the reasons why. We've talked about many of the reasons why, um, but today was an example of what you could expect to see when things get back to where they're supposed to be, just reaching historical levels of man's ratio between the gold silver, let alone the geological ratio. Man's ratio
Yeah.
is somewhere in the 42 to 43 to 1 over the last 150 years. That was with the geological ratio at 16 to 1, but silver's disappearing. And now it's 7 to 1, and its uses are going higher. And this is why you're seeing such massive overt attempts not only to hold down the price of silver, but for like the Chinese to fly around the world buying doré and concentrate from Latin America to mask how much they're really accumulating, even as the second largest producer of silver in the world. But today's a good example of what you could expect to see. Gold's up $30, huge move. Silver's up $1.60. It's not as impressive as $30, but take a step back and look at the percentage. It's 1.1 versus 5.1. The percentage, the performance of silver percentage-wise was 5 times the move of gold today. Now that's just a microcosm. But this is looking at silver, which right now is at the tip of a 40 plus year. Was it 40? I think it's a 40. A 40 plus year cup and handle formation. Is it 40 or 24? I'm not sure. But a massive cup and handle formation, which is hugely bullish for silver. I just think that this is one of these deals when the thing finally goes to where everyone has been talking about trading their silver into gold at some point, perhaps when the ratio corrects. This is how it will look. This is just one day, but what if it were 1 week or 1 month or 6 months of silver outperforming gold 5 times percentage? And when you step on price of silver the way that 8 commercial banks are holding the largest short position, concentrated short position on silver of any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX, the largest concentrated short, illegal at that, CFTC, where the hell are they? When this really starts to break because the rest of the world is wise to what we're doing, the potential is limitless.
I agree. So I woke up this morning. I almost bought some silver miners yesterday. I've been watching a few of them, and I got busy and just wasn't able to do it. Woke up this morning and they were up between 6 and 8% and continue to rise today. So I primarily like to have the physical. I'll put a little bit of money into the miners, but to see the miners move today was a surprise as well. They've pretty much not done anything, at least the silver miners. The gold miners have moved up a little bit recently. But Andy, what do you think might be making a difference in why we're seeing some movement in that gold to silver ratio? I saw a complete drop today.
Well, I mean, I think it's just a realization around the globe that silver has become not an industrial metal, but a strategic metal. It's a realization by countries like India, let me just look at the exact number here. Their number up year to date. So last year was a huge number in the amount of silver that they imported. And last year, their number was 560 tons through the first half of the year. Right now, through the first half of 2024, their number is up 4,554 tons, or up 7-fold from what it was last year, which was a record year. That's India. And of course, like I said, China, the second largest producer of silver in the world, they're flying around all around Latin America, buying up the doré and the concentrate, paying twice what the West will pay to accumulate it and bring it home and refine it there. And then you take a look at, from a bullish standpoint, a massive cup and handle formation. And then the Fed cuts. You know, for the first time in 2 years, we're seeing positive inflow into the ETFs. And that comes at a time when the Fed is cutting and when a massive bullish wave of reasoning, mostly accumulation by the BRICS countries, it's all converging together. And silver has been massively stepped on. Anyone who would argue, in fact, am I able, I don't know, have I ever shared that did I share with you the concentrated short position image
I don't think so,
before?
not yet.
Let me pull this up real quick because I think people should see this. I'll try and share my screen with you, but I got to find it real quick. Bear with me. I think it's the next slide. Here it is, right here. Okay, so let me share my screen.
Yep, hit present down there.
Let's see, present. Share screen. Window. Okay, this one right here. Tell me when you can see it. You see that?
Yep, I see it. I'm going to add it.
All right. So this is a from a presentation I did not too long ago, but you can see the concentrate. These. So the red line is the 4 biggest commercial banks. The green line is the 4 biggest commercial banks plus the next 4, 8. So what you see right here, this is COMEX. Here's oil right here, right there. That's the short position by the 8 biggest commercial banks in oil. And they were able to push silver down to negative 40 a barrel in 2020. Remember that? Where the futures are controlling the paper price. Same thing here. Now ask yourself, why the hell are there 8 banks that have the largest concentrated short position in any commodity, period, that you could even think of traded on the COMEX market? Why is it in silver? We've talked a lot about that. But I mean, while we're on the subject, just to bring it up, here it is. This is a subcommittee report or a subcommittee meeting in 1942, where you can see, according to the War Production Board, it's only a matter of months before war demands will increase sufficiently to require at least 200 million ounces a year. That's in 1942. You can Google this right here, S.2768, and it's a subcommittee hearing on silver and war purposes in 1942. But here's the smoking gun. That was the smoking gun. But here, look at this. Here are the demand numbers from the Silver Institute: industrial, electrical and electronics, photovoltaics, that's solar panels, brazing alloys and solders, other industrial, photography, jewelry, silverware. Where the hell's military? In 1942, we needed 200 million ounces. Today, we don't need any. Right. And I've talked about the speech I did in Vancouver, where the DOD came up to me, a member of the DOD, and said to me, hey, you're right. There is silver in the Tomahawk. I helped develop it. Last slide, and I'll stop sharing. Here are the London vaults right here, where you can see this is how they're beating us. They're draining the exchanges. Of the 800 million ounces or so that they have in London, over 500 million belong to the ETFs. So you got 300 million ounces there. And yet this is the same exchange that admits to trading 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day on an 800 million ounce stockpile, of which 500 million doesn't belong to the vault. It belongs to the ETF. So, all right, I'll stop sharing. But the point I'm trying to get at here is that silver is massively held down by 8 banks that are trying to create high-tech weaponry. And they've been doing that for a long time because the countries around the world weren't motivated or coordinated or sophisticated enough to stand for delivery. They are now, and they're draining the exchanges. And then they go on to as far as draining the directly to the mine supply in the form of sludge, which is concentrate, or the doré bars. And for your listeners who don't know what a doré bar is, that's a bar that is crudely refined by the miner, maybe at 50% pure or 60% pure, whatever that number is, who then ship it to the refiner that refines it down to 9999% pure. So they're buying those unrefined bars and paying double what the West will, and then sending them home and refining them themselves. That's very opaque. And so I think what's happening is that the real laws of supply and demand are catching up with the ability to suppress the price. And I will say it again, you can only successfully manipulate a market over time by pushing in the direction it's going. You can't hold back a tsunami of global demand. And especially when the demand is from the wealthy, sophisticated central banks who can match blows tit for tat with the West. And that's the difference. Then it's never been this way, and it is now.
So, Andy, looking at that, you talk often about little by little by little, and then all at once. So, waking up today and seeing silver up was a good surprise for the silver I hold. It was a little bit more of a, oh no, maybe I need to get some more, and the price is going up. So, they always goes in cycles, but we saw such a large jump today. And to your point, we saw it go up 5 times as high, silver today, than gold did. When people actually understand what's happening to the COMEX, and they understand how many paper, ounces of silver have been produced against every one real, and I think we're in the 400 plus range. I don't have the exact number in front of me, 420 or something like that. How fast can that all at once be? Can that be in a single day? Can we see a massive jump and wake up and see it way higher?
Yeah, by the way, Martin McCabe, those are the numbers directly from the Silver Institute. So okay. I didn't make that chart. I guess he said they're not two L's, and I do see that. No, they don't. There's only one L there. Photo VOLTA. So I think he saw it wrong. So they got it right. Yeah, that little by, I think it will happen that way. I mean, the little by little is happening. The logarithmic decay is happening. Someone else in there, by the way, said you only get $1 over spot when you sell back your Eagles. Well, you're selling them to the wrong company. I'd pay you well north of $2. Anyways, the bottom line is that yes, this would happen very quickly, I think. But for all of us, we would look at it as such a long, drawn out process. Because most people can't deal with the little by little. That's the nothing burger, and people look away. But what I've been watching since 2020 is a systematic draining of the system, and that draining of the system has happened. I've been trying to give it a chronology and to talk about it continuously for 4 years. And that's why people, might say, well, I'm saying the same thing. Yeah, I am because it keeps happening. And that leads to that all at once moment. And if you don't watch this, and the fact that I keep saying it, yet no one else, you don't see it anywhere else. You don't see it on the mainstream. You have to see it. And the fact that it's increasing in speed and in volume is extraordinary. The volume increase on the Shanghai Metals Exchange, as an example, over the past several months is up almost 400%, and has outpaced the volume on the COMEX, making it the second most actively traded commodity exchange on the planet. That's the Shanghai Metals Exchange. So you can see that things across the globe are moving in a direction that the West hasn't caught on to yet, and moving at a speed in which even many of the gold and silver bugs haven't caught up to yet. And most of us don't believe that this is real because it's like, it's like the little boy who cried wolf. Well, every time the price gets up, it gets hammered. But yet I've never seen a market with such strength and resiliency keeps coming back. And this is at a time with a positive real yield, a strong dollar, and ETF outflows for the last 2 years from the West, which are now just starting to turn up right at the same time the Fed is pivoting. Right at the same time, you're at the cusp of a massive cup and handle formation, massive central bank purchasing, just less than a month away from the BRICS meeting and 6-8 weeks away from the biggest election of our lives. There's so many reasons to be buying gold and silver right now. It's not even funny. But the last reason is to become wealthy. It is wealth. And the most well-informed traders in the world, the central bankers, are proving that with their constant acquisition, driving up the price, despite all of the negative things I just mentioned in the West, which now seem to be moving in the other direction. So yeah, that all at once, I think, will shock people. It happened on a Monday morning. It'll happen in a way that blows people up. Maybe it's a default on the LBMA. Maybe it's a massive delivery. Last month, to give you an example, 8.1% of all the available silver in London was delivered. 8%, 25 million ounces. Who's got that kind of bread? That was delivered in 1 month. Goodbye. That ain't never coming back. Never. And that's what they're doing. They're draining because the exchanges give you the right to do it. And if you disable the right to take possession, then the market is immediately exposed for a scam. It's Bernie Madoff. And of the nearly 3 billion actual ounces traded per day in London, they say it's 290 million, but they say it's 10 times understated. Okay. So roughly 2.9 billion ounces, 90+% are paper contracts. And if someone said, give it to me, well, sorry, I don't got it. Can't get it. So that's when the all at once moment happens. And that's when the Western exchanges lose. And no one will deliver at those prices anymore, and that's when the validity of price setting will move eastward to a place like Shanghai, to a place like Dubai or Moscow. These are the countries that produce it. They're the ones who consume it. They're the ones who understand it. Where the people in the West are infatuated with instant gratification not being quickly enough in things like Nvidia and Apple and Bitcoin and all of these things. And I'm not a crypto basher. I'm just simply saying that the central banks of these countries are not accumulating Bitcoin the way that they are gold and silver. And that trend, which I've been documenting for 4 years, is accelerating faster than I've ever thought would even be possible. And I don't think we've even seen anything yet heading into the election.
Yeah, I agree. So right now, Andy, I just want to point out we've got 113 people watching, and we've got 35 people that have hit that thumbs up. I'm just going to point out there, guys. I came back from Utah. I don't know if you've seen these before, Andy. Goldbacks, kind of fun.
I have. I know the gentleman who actually owns the company.
Awesome. So a lot of people look at these as very novelty. There's now 5 states, and Florida is going to be the 6th one that's getting them pretty soon. But I'm going to give some of these away if we can get up to 100 thumbs up before we end the live stream here, guys. So if you can do that, we'll do a handful of these and do some giveaways for you guys. Just to
right
kind of
on.
get going. But looking at everything that we're looking at in the market today, we've kind of waited for this rate decrease for about a month, maybe 2 months now. That there's been a lot of talk about it. And there was a lot of conversations around, are we going to have a quarter point? Are we going to have a half a point? And what else will the Fed say? And it was a very interesting day because the moment that they came out and said it's going to be a half a point or 50 basis point drop, we saw gold and silver in crypto skyrocket. And then shortly after that, the Fed talked about a few other things that people just were not buying about the economy, and we saw it drop back down. Since then, we have seen gold and silver recover. We've seen Bitcoin come up a little bit, but it's kind of flattened out a little bit on its recovery. But we saw silver jump today too. So based on what the Fed was saying and your understanding of where things may go, how do you think that's going to affect the gold and silver prices going till the end of the year here and potentially into, like, say, Q1 of next year?
Well, it depends if you get like the Chicago Fed president. This guy's about as big of an idiot as they come. Austin Goolsbee, I think he had something to do with being maybe even the Treasury or the head of the Treasury for Obama. I'm not sure, but the name rings a bell. I just know that he's the Chicago Fed president. This is the same guy that just said all the pennies that we have standing out, the roughly $2.5 billion worth that are now costing more to produce. So let's just make them nickels. And okay. I mean, this is a guy that just only thinks in terms of inflation. Let's just make them nickels. Well, that would be great in rainbow and unicorn land, but that's actually what he's advocating. It's the same guy that said that over the next 12 months that we have a long way to come down to somewhere in the neighborhood of a 3% federal funds rate, which would be 4 more of these 50 basis point cuts, which would only reignite the inflation engine to the nth degree. And so, you have Fed cutting rates at a time when ETFs are turning up for the first time in 2 years. And there are articles talking about massive demand on the Goldman Sachs trading desk that they haven't seen before in years since 2010. You put that in there with potentially more Fed rate cuts heading into an environment where when the rate cuts happened, the back end of the curve went higher. In other words, the bonds sold off. That's the rest of the world saying, I knew that's what you were going to do. We're not going to hold any duration debt from you. You're going to choose inflation over austerity the way you always have. And if we continue to drop and drop and drop down to 3%, you might as well kiss the dollar goodbye. It's very interesting that they do this when they're 65% away from their objective, their goal of 2%. They're at 3.3%, and that's coming from the BS, the bullshit. I mean, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the CPI. I mean, the CPI. Everything they talk about is a bunch of crap, whether it be their dual mandate of unemployment, which they revise 1 million jobs. Sorry that we didn't create those, actually, even though we told you for the last year that we did. And that 1.3 million in jobs that were lost over the last year, replaced with 665,000 part-time jobs, most of which were illegal, undocumented immigrants taking those jobs, do not paint the right picture. Look at U6, the number that used to be quoted up through the 90s that John Williams of Shadow Stats will tell you we're at 7.5% to 8% unemployment, not the 4% that the current mandate says. And at the same time, inflation, he'd say add an 8 to it, not the 3, but we're over 11%. And now we're going to reignite that inflation spigot. Inflation's only going to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And the rest of the world understands that. So I would say it's rocket fuel. You put it into the equation, you got positive inflows into the ETFs for the first time in 2 years, a Fed that is pivoting and lowering rates for the first time in, well, I mean, compared to the 500 basis point increase, which is supposed to be the death knell for metals. And yet they continued to go higher in the face of positive real yield, spiking interest rates, strong dollar, et cetera. You add this now and turn the other way, the potential is crazy. We're right at that breakout level of about 3250. You cross over 3250, which was, if I'm not mistaken, the previous resistance on the way down from 50 before, and would be the decade high. There's nothing stopping it on its way to 50. And when you talk about gold, we're already at all-time highs. But here again, the values are distorted completely and totally from reality because of the suppression. Like I showed you, gold was number 2 on that chart, right behind silver in terms of suppression, because it represents an illusion of strength of bond market and of the Western system. The rest of the world knows that we're lying about all of this stuff, lying about inflation, lying about unemployment, lying about money creation, all of the things that we've been able to successfully keep from people. The rest of the world gets it now, or much of the world gets it, and using it against us. So I think, especially with what the Fed's doing, and especially if Goolsbee is right, and we see several more cuts baked into the cake over the next few months, the potential is crazy. And if Trump, both candidates want lower yield or lower return on fixed income. They both want lower rates. It's not what we need. It's the worst possible thing. Best thing for my business, best thing for those of you who hold precious metals, but not a good thing for the future of the dollar.
Yeah, I'm seeing a commodity super cycle with gold and silver leading it right now. And to me, I look at the future of my kids. I've got 3 kids, and I live here in Southern California. I don't know how they're ever going to afford a home here, and so we're looking at other options to relocate our family, to figure out how we can be able to have them get closer to us at some point. But in everything you said, I agree with. Interest rates should have gone up a lot higher. They didn't. They never went high enough in the first place to stop inflation.
That's the most important point. They should have never lowered. They should have kept going higher because they never stopped inflation. That's the most important.
They never stopped the inflation. And so now that they're lowering them, inflation's going to come back in. And, most of you that are watching this already know that gold and silver are hedges against inflation. So as that inflation goes up, they're going to continue to move up. What Andy's also talking about is some of these other indicators that could potentially correct the real price and lead to real price discovery of gold and silver that we don't have today because of all this manipulation. And, what I'm wondering too is at what point we actually hit that. So, we could have some bank failures. We could have other issues that happen with the banks where they can't keep up with it, but it doesn't even have to be that. From what I'm hearing from you, it could be as simple as people actually understanding what's happening with all the paper, silver, and gold, and then starting to realize that what they have in these ETFs and some of these other instruments is not real. It's not really there. And then people right there could start freaking out and trying to move into the real precious metals. I mean, it doesn't have to take a bank collapse to bring that about.
Well, our company added 14,000 clients in 45 days when Silicon Valley Bank was bailed out illegally. Should have been bailed in. What would trigger a collapse to the degree that most people are ill prepared to even think of would be a bail-in by a large bank, like maybe they sacrificed Bank of America. Is there any coincidence that Buffett's been yanking all of his money out? Is there any coincidence that they're the bank that holds, I don't know where they are with it, but for the last 2 years have held 1 billion ounces short on the silver market, 1 billion ounces, and as much as 40 million ounces short in gold, according to Ted Butler, rest his soul. He said in depth and 100% it was Bank of America. So, I mean, if they let one of these large banks get bailed in and sacrifice them at the altar because they want to consolidate the banks and move towards a CBDC, as we keep hearing over and over and over again, bail out one big bank and watch what would happen. everyone would flip. Everyone would run as fast as they could the minute they get off of work, or they would just leave the office, go to the bank and say, give me my damn money. But the banks have a 0% reserve requirement until next month here, or in October, when it's supposed to go up to 4.5%, which would be considered a well liquefied bank. Think about that. Only 4.5% of assets on hand. So yeah, you want to talk about a catalyst. To me, it all starts with the banks, and what sets the fuse, going, I don't know. Logic would say commercial real estate, but I guess we'll see.
I agree. And for those of you that don't know, I come from a banking family, and the bank that my family was involved in was a very large. We took a very, very big crash in 2008. We were a savings and loan. And what I can say, Andy, from the experience that I went through with my family through that whole thing, is that there was definitely consolidation there. We saw the big banks were too big to fail. They bailed them out. A lot of the medium-sized banks they bailed out. Credit unions were in a safer position, and the entire industry of savings and loans they allowed to completely collapse. And they went up in smoke, and they didn't do any kind of.
There wasn't a bailout for you guys?
No bailout, not at all. And here's the thing, though, there shouldn't have been a bailout for any of it, right?
Of course.
The problem is how did we get there in the first place? A lot of it came down to the way that they forced different kinds of lending instruments and allowed subprime lending. That's what took it down. So I'm not here complaining that we didn't get a bailout. What I'm saying is things were set up in a way that made it very easy for an opportunity to happen like 2008 for consolidation. I think the same thing may be getting set up with the commercial backed equities that they have around all of the buildings that are in the cities where people are no longer going into work. And the rates are starting to recast on all of their loans to the point where they're going to be 2 to 3 times higher than what they were paying previously, even with the little half a point rate decrease. So, I think it could be set up that way. It's something to keep your eyes out for everybody that's watching out there. Well, Andy, I had a couple questions that came in the chat that I think would be good because they dovetail into what we're talking about, and they may lead us down a couple of the conversations. Are you cool for answering a couple questions?
Yeah, I'm good. Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so first one is from Vintage Joe. I'm going to show it up here. Any dip opportunities coming, or should we just keep buying no matter what?
To me, yes. In all things being equal, you're the old saying, buy the dips, sell the rips. Well, you don't do that with physical metal, but it would behoove you to buy on the dip. I have made it much easier. I tell the story all the time. When I started my company 34 years ago, my dad said, you buy something every 2 weeks or I'll fire you. And I've owned the company for over 2 decades myself. He won't fire me, but it's very important to me to honor my word to him. And I have, and I've bought something every 2 weeks for 34, going on 35 years, which allows the uncertainty curve to be smoothed out. The cost averaging, it allowed me to understand the dynamics and the power of compounding, not just of interest, people think, but of time. It's like working out. Every day you go and work out. You don't go to the gym and work out really, really hard the day after Thanksgiving and now you're done for the year. You go every day and you become methodical. In this case, I've been methodical and regimented every 2 weeks for 35 years almost. So to me, I don't look at, I personally feel safer holding gold and silver than I do paper currency. And look at that. The money creation is running at 7 or 8% per year, about 7% in the United States. And if you smooth it out, and gold has been up 9.9%. But see, here's another thing most people didn't learn in high school, the rule of 70 seconds, the law of 70 seconds. This is, again, the power of compounding. You take the interest rate. So in this case, if money supply is growing at 7% per year, pretty much on average, and you divide that into 72, well, that tells you how long it takes for your principal to double. We're going to do an interesting experiment here, and I don't know the exact number, but I bet it's going to freak people out. Probably freak me out too. All right, so gold, 10 years ago, the gold was 12. Oh, look at this. Look at this. All right, Kate, want to see the power of math? Okay, 10 years ago, gold was $1,200. Today, it's what? $2,600. Okay, so it's doubled in 10 years. What is a 7% money creation per year do to the value of the dollar? 7 into 72, that's 10.2 years. In 10.2 years, the law of 70 seconds would say that either your principal doubles if you are accumulating interest, or if you're losing to interest, your principal is cut in half. So the dollar is worth half of what it was 10 years ago. But look at this. The price of gold is up slightly more than double. Do you see the power? You go back to 1933. This ounce of gold was $20 gold piece, and here's a $20 gold certificate. They were interchangeable. This says payable to the bearer on demand in gold coin. It doesn't say in God we trust. But if Grandpa left a box of these, 500 of them for $10,000, and 500 of these for $10,000. Now, forget about the fact that's a gold certificate. It's worth a little bit more than a regular 20. But the point is the same. If you had 500 $20 bills since 1930 in a shoebox that Grandpa left you, along with 500 of these, which was the same amount in 1933, this 20 grand, what's that worth? This is worth way over $1 million. So the point of it is that gold doesn't make you rich. It retains its purchasing power. And go back over 10 years, and that's almost textbook right there, where gold has doubled in 10 years and at a 7% money creation currently on average over the last 20 plus years or longer, a lot of it accentuated by the massive money creation recently. Same thing though, it held its value. And in other words, gold is this. So let's do a little experiment here. Or this is a bathtub and this ounce of gold, well, this is sitting on the ledge, right? And the water underneath it is the value of the dollar. If I pour the water out or pull the plug on the water, did the price of gold go higher, or did the dollar just sink? Gold ain't moving. It's sitting right here on the ledge. But the dollar underneath it, well, the plug got pulled. And that's the same thing. You look at the Japanese yen, and you know, the yen hasn't gotten, or gold hasn't gone much higher. It's the yen that's gotten crushed. You know, the yen, it used to be, I don't know, the price of gold has tripled in the yen over the last 10 years. Did gold go up 3 times, or did the yen get crushed? And so I just think it's one of these deals. People need to understand what gold represents, its wealth. And the dollar is an asset that if you continue to hold it, you will go broke. And that's a prime example. In 10 years, that dollar is half of what it once was, but the gold is slightly above double what it once was. You couldn't draw it up any better, in my opinion.
I love the analogy, Andy. So I think that's awesome. That's a great answer to
That's
that.
why you just keep buying anyways. I mean, and you don't worry about the prices. I could have answered that much easier, but that's why it's not about the price. I mean, it is, and it's cavalier of me to say that. I'm not trying to be. It sounds that way. Richard Russell always said, in the end, it's the number of ounces that you own. You won't even remember what you paid. And he's right. Yeah. It is about the number of ounces. Yeah, it's great if we can get the best price, but it shouldn't be your main determination, because this is worth a lot more than the money that you used to buy this with. And it's only getting worth less and less and less and less and less, or in this case, more and more and more and more and more.
That's awesome. Andy, thank you for that. Because the visuals help though. Being able to point out the certificate versus the coin is a huge thing. Your other one also helps as well. Okay, this is a kind of maybe a quicker one for you here. We already kind of hit it a little bit on the premium. It was going back and forth.
I mean, the generics give you the biggest bang for the buck. The maples would be second. That's the silver metal. And to me, gold, and I say silver, I'm talking bronze, silver, gold, like Olympics. Number one in terms of what if I had my choice, it's gold and silver eagles all day long. That would be my choice. Period. And the value in the eagles is not as good as it is in just about everything else if we're just simply talking biggest bang for the buck. The maples would be a very close second. They're the purest silver coin in the world at 9999 fine. They're made in North America. They're easily recognized. For me, buying gold, I don't compromise. I buy eagles over maples. In silver, I'd rather have eagles, but I have no problem with the maples. They're more pure coin and they're a couple bucks an ounce less, better value. But all things being considered, I would much rather own the Eagles. Now, the one thing about the generics is that much of the legal tender law that we're seeing written around the country, 11 states that have already approved it, and many more that have it in front of their legislature. My buddy Jason Cousins of Glint is flying to Iowa next week to speak in front of the state legislature there, and he's helping push this narrative of bringing gold and silver back to the states. And there's a clause in the Constitution that says states can't issue their own money unless it's gold and silver. Then they can. And now we've seen 11 states say, well, any coin issued by a sovereign mint like the United States Mint would be accepted for all debts, public and private, including paying your property taxes. Some of the states, I think like Oklahoma, say specifically American Eagle coins, these and the Silver Eagles. But I think that's the one knock against buying the generics, is that it's not a legal tender coin made by a sovereign mint. So you're going to save a little bit of money, but all things being equal, I would choose a Maple Leaf or a Philharmonic or a Britannia or a Krugerrand or a Kangaroo or an Eagle over a generic if I could. But buying the generics is better than not buying anything if it's an issue of saving money and cost affordability. I can't answer much of anything quickly these days, it seems. My wife says I never shut up, so I apologize.
All right, this next one's going to be an interesting one. I can't wait to see your answer on this one.
Okay.
So, you're going to like this one. We've already kind of hit this maybe 3 shows ago.
Oh, boy. I mean, look, we had a surplus in Minnesota, a very large surplus that's all but gone, and he wasted it and squandered it on things, that he's called Tampon Tim. They call him that. Well, why? Because he mandated that all high schools, middle schools and high schools in the state of Minnesota, every one of them, public schools, had to have a tampon dispenser in boys' bathrooms in case there were young ladies who identified as a boy who was in the boy bathroom and had her period or his period or had a period, and squandered. How disrespectful is that to the taxpayer? Look, this is a guy. I was so proud of Minnesota. I loved it. I grew up there, raised a family there, went to school there, never would have left. My wife used to say, my wife is very worldly. She was production manager for rock bands, and toured all around the world. Slipknot, Korn, Backstreet Boys, Marilyn Manson, Ozzy Osbourne, Eagles, Millennium Tour, all around the world. Been everywhere. And I met her. I mean, I've known her since childhood. She lived in Minnesota. But after living around, largely in Beverly Hills before we got together, she's like, well, why can't we just do this job elsewhere? And I would say, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving. My family, my business, everything. And then I watched what happened during the pandemic, and I didn't go into the office and realize, okay, well, I don't need to be there. But then I watched what happened to the state of Minnesota. I used to live in downtown Minneapolis after college and loved it. I would walk home from the bars at 2 a.m. without a second thought. They destroyed the city. He let it happen. He let that city burn to the ground for 3 days before bringing in the National Guard. He let the 3rd Precinct police station get burned down with Molotov cocktails on national TV and didn't do anything about it. This is a guy that's a complete idiot and left of left. And I left Minnesota as a result of it. I came to Florida for a vacation in the second week of February, or first week of February 2021. I land in Florida. My parents had rented a house, and they said, my dad called me and said, I hate where we're at. I'm bored stiff. I'm going back home. Bring your family down here. You guys can have the house for 2 weeks. It's right on the water in Boca Grande. He said, by the way, Mom and I bought a condo at the Trump Tower in Florida on the other side in Hollywood. And well, we're going to be there half the year. And I landed in Florida, and this is when Governor Walz, in the midst of a pandemic with everything locked down, raised income tax in the state of Minnesota to over 10%, I believe. And And that was after letting the city become eviscerated and burned down and destroyed. And I called my dad, said, give me the name of your real estate agent. I'm moving. I came for a vacation and I left with the house. And I drove across. We've had an office in Delray Beach for 20 years, a satellite office that my oldest friend in the world runs. And I knew of Delray Beach because of it. I walked into a golf community. I said, I'm never leaving. I put an offer on a house, immediately walked out, said to my wife, what the hell are we doing? What did I just do? And I never had any intention of moving when I left PAC for that vacation. But I did it because of Governor Walz, because he destroyed the quality of life. I was driving down Atlantic Avenue in Delray Beach, for those of you who know it, after leaving Minnesota in the middle of the winter when everything was locked down, when my little kid, my 3 kids, my youngest, had to hang out with her friends in the garage with heat lamps and in below zero weather because no one knew what the hell was going on. And we flew to Florida, and I drive down Atlantic Avenue after leaving Minnesota in this state, and there are open bars all up and down the street, people, live music, no masks, people smoking cigs and drinking and partying like it's normal. I said, where the hell are we? And the difference in leadership between DeSantis and Walz was just night and day. And I said, I'm leaving. And I voted with my feet. And it was the right thing to do. And most people won't do it. I never thought I would do it. I just did it. And it's like having a kid. You're never ready to do something like this. But God help us if this current administration retains office, is my opinion. They've done more to destroy this country than any external folk could have ever have done over the last several years. And he's worse than the current administration. He's left of that and has no regard for money that the government has and in terms of its stewardship, and will just spend it any which way he sees fit. The same guy that wants to give driver's license to people in the state illegally or in the country illegally. Are you kidding me? And it's same guy that wants to let them vote. And so I don't know. I can keep going, but all I will simply tell you is that he's a bad dude. He's an idiot, a moronic idiot who has no idea how to responsibly run a state, let alone, God forbid, a country. Other than that, he's great.
So there you go, guys. So watch out for those. All right, one last question here, and then we're going to get to some giveaways, Andy. We actually hit well over 100. That's great. So here's the other question I have that I think it's a good one. It kind of dovetails into what you mentioned a few minutes ago too. Now that silver's up today, a lot more than gold, I think a lot of people's eyes are on silver and they're trying to think, what do I do next? What's my move? We've just talked about generics versus sovereign coins. What's your thought between, say, coins and 10-ounce bars? In the question here specifically, candy bars versus, say, like a 10-ounce, I guess, like Royal Canadian Mint bar or something along those lines.
Say that. I don't understand the question.
So a candy bar would be just a hand-poured 10-ounce silver bar. Versus like a sovereign bar from the Royal Canadian Mint or from like PAMP.
Well, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if it's poured or extruded. I mean, the prettier bars are the ones that have the sharp, clean edges, if that's what you're talking about. There is no right or wrong answer any longer. I mean, typically, anything that comes out of the Royal Canadian Mint or the PAMP Swiss Mint or the Perth Mint or Valcambi, these are all name brand entities. So it doesn't really matter right now. Typically speaking, in 10-ounce bars, the Royal Canadian Mint would be the nicest of the bunch, but I prefer the ones that are not hand poured. I prefer the ones that are stamped and sharp edges and clean versus the ones that are poured, which are just fine too from a standpoint of value.
Yeah, my thought too for everybody watching is, as far as bars come, I really look more at price if I'm buying a bar. There's some that will fetch a little bit better on a resale. But for me, I try to stick with coins as much as possible. I do have rounds, but I go with more coins. And I do have some bars. For me, bars are usually something that I sell at a coin show. When I attend one of those, it's not something I'm necessarily holding long term. I'm a big fan of the American Silver Eagle. Also, the Maple Leaf is great too. I've had issues a little bit with some of the Britannias with milk spotting. But oftentimes you can get those at a good price as well.
Yeah, some of the Maple Leafs, in particular, the Call of the Wild edition, which I love, the limited edition, they have those milk spots too. And
Yeah, coins
I
can
don't
get.
know what causes them, but they are unsightly for sure.
All right. Well, Andy, what we're going to do here is I'm going to let you go here, and we're going to, unless you want to hang around for the picking here, you
What
can
are
do
you
that.
giving away?
We're going to give away a couple of these gold backs.
How many are you giving away?
I'm going to give away. We've got a ton of people on here, so I'm going to give away 4 of these.
All right, I'll tell you what. I need to run, but what I want you to do is send me an email with the 4 winners, and I will
Yep.
send each one of those 4 winners a Silver Eagle as well.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. Let's do this again real soon. And I think it's going to get crazy. I truly do. Let's not forget October 22nd, the meeting in Russia, the BRICS meeting. And then shortly thereafter, the election. This is not going to be smooth sailing for the next 6 weeks. There'll be lots to talk about. So I look forward to picking up where we left off. Let me know who the winners are, and I will send out the Silver Eagles. Personally, all I'm going to say is this. I'm probably going to send them myself and not have my office do it. So for all of you who win those Silver Eagles, this is not how we typically package stuff. This is not my forte. I'm going to package it in kind of old school fashion, not in the way that if you got it from my office. So keep that in mind.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. We'll let you drop
Got it,
down.
brother. All the best to you, man. You take it easy.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. So let's see if I can get this to work real quick. We were having an issue with the random generator. Let me see if I can get it working again real quick. Let's give it a try here. It is just not working. All right, guys, here's how we're going to do this today. We're going to have to make it a little bit easy. We got a lot on here. We're going to do 4 of these, okay? So since the random generators will not cooperate with me today, and I do not have a magic spin wheel, I'm going to put a phrase in, and you guys are going to copy that phrase and put it back in there. And then what I'm going to do is pick a number, and we're going to go down the list and pick that person. And that's going to be the person that goes. So you're going to need to be quick on these. And we're going to do 4 of these pretty fast. So good luck to everybody. Go ahead and put this down. And we are going to, I'm going to have you guys just do a hashtag on here. You guys will like this one. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is as soon as you see the thing I'm typing in, go ahead and type that in. And then I'm going to pick 4 numbers, and I've got them in my phone here. I'm going to put them in here right now. All right. So that you see that I don't type them afterwards. Okay. So I've got 4 numbers in here that are not changing right now. Get ready for this, guys. Here it comes. And we're going to go, I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to have my mods help me find the numbers. And then those are the people that are going to win. When you win, go ahead and send me an email, stackingsurfer@gmail.com. Let me know which number you were. Let me know what your YouTube handle is. Okay. And then also, the other thing I need you to do is put your name and address in that email so that we can send that out to you. Also, this is only for people that are subscribers. So if you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and subscribe so that you guys are qualified for that, especially those that win. We will be checking that too. All right, here we go. Get ready, guys. Off to the races. Let's see who's going to win. So I've got some cool gold backs here. They're going to come from New Hampshire today, which will be fun. So we're going to give out 4 of those, and then Andy's matching it with 4 more silver Eagles, which is pretty sweet. All right. And then we're going to figure out how to get the randomizer working in the next one. And caps don't matter, guys. Just get it as close as you can to that. All righty. All right, I'm gonna turn this around so my mods can start helping me on this real quick. All right, here you go. So we're gonna look for number 10, number 20, number 30, and number 40. All right. Now, We're going to do this off of my screen here if I can show it. But I need the mods to kind of help me with this a little bit too. So let's see if I can show it this way. All right, yep. We're going to do it this way, guys. Apologize for the technology problem today. Okay, so the first one I have is THS. Right there is number 10. Andy rocks. Congratulations. And then the next one I have is Born Hunting. Congratulations. So that's number 20. Number 30, right here, we've got SJ Fretworks. Congratulations. And then let's get number 40. And number 40 is Metal Mobster. So congratulations to the winners. You guys look out for Andy. We're going to be doing a lot more live streams with Andy, and then we'll also be doing some compilations from these videos for shorter snippets if you want to catch those as well. But I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And, you know, silver and gold are up, so I felt generous. Andy feels generous. We want to help to the community. We want to help you guys grow your stacks. And the reality is we're all in this together as a community. So it's all about helping each other, learning from each other, and building. Also, look out for a really cool video that's coming out this week about the, well, I won't tell you what it is yet, but it's a really killer collectible coin that I won off of Instagram that I think you guys are going to love, especially any of you that are Christian. It's got a Christian reference to it. So look out for that video coming out. And until next time, peace out, guys. Thank you for coming.